just to execute the beginning of that stage as Diddy. And Donkey just doesn't make up enough time. I'm sorry, Diddy doesn't make up enough time with his faster movement speed as short as that stage is. Little warp there in Treetop Town, nothing much to talk about. But now we're into Forest Frenzy. So this is where someone gets a very potentially large lead. So I mentioned super jump rolls before. We combined a super jump, which is what you saw at Millstone Mayhem, with a jump roll, which is a frame perfect Y press as you land on an enemy. Fathlo going for it right now. And it looked like he didn't actually go for it, or he just missed it. But Stu ended up hitting it, and so Stu is now flying over the stage at a very fast speed. In fact, the fastest speed possible. Fathlo now is going to be 30 seconds behind if he hits it here. It looks like he's going to opt out of it because he took fast barrel there. So I think he's just going to cut his losses and super jump over the stage. Not exactly sure what went wrong that first time, but now he's about 50 seconds behind, opting to just take the super jump. Stu now in Temple Tempest, and there was some new tech that I mentioned earlier called the SFR, the super free roll. There is one in this stage, but it looks like he's not going to go for it, seeing as he is solo Diddy right now and dispatching those naughties. You would have to pick up Donkey in the beginning of the stage to go for the Temple Tempest SFR, but I think he's probably just not practiced up enough with it. And it's still also highly debated whether or not that actually saves time. We're still working on it a lot, trying to optimize it and whatnot, finding new strategies, new ways to implement this tech. But either way, very nice stage. He actually opts out of the rope and goes for the rope clip there. Pretty sure that only saves time if you're like completely optimal. But still some cool tech to do. Lots of cool extendos in this stage. If I didn't finish with saying what they were before, you press Y to start a roll through an enemy with Y released, and then repress, and it refreshes your roll. You can use that to chain enemies together and skip a lot of gaps and whatnot. So they're very, very useful in lots of different places. A couple good ones in this stage. So now Stu is on to Clam Chowder. Another stage with On Guard, so he's going to be riding his fish buddy. Something that he did in the meantime when I was explaining extendos is Map Warp, is what you're going to see on Fathlo's screen here in a second. There are corners on the overworld map of World 1 between 4 different stages. There are 4 different corners. We only use 2 of them in any of the speedruns. One particular on the very bottom of the screen for this all stages speedrun, right down there, first try for Fathlo. What you do is you just mash all the face buttons as you get to the corner, and it wrong warps you into the very end of what ends up being the next stage when they go to it is O-Gang, Orangutan Gang. So that basically cuts, I think, 16 seconds out over playing out the stage normally. You go back there taking Funky's Flight Barrel. So now Stu is onto the B boss. There is a quick cycle you can get at the beginning there. You got it no problem. And basically just smash these barrels into Queen Bee as she turns yellow. She's invulnerable while she's red. Basically the only optimizations here, besides getting the quick hit in the beginning, is to just hit her as close as her becoming vulnerable as possible. Something more to explain about On Guard, as you see on Fathlo's screen on the right there. He's got this lunge ability, and you can use that in the iframes that you get while you're lunging to clip through enemies. Unfortunately, he missed Clam Clip there at the end. Call it Commentator's Curse. My bad, Fathlo. Now Stu heading into 4-1, the Winter World. And he's going to go for Joe Roll right there. Nice little gap roll. And Zero Roll as well. Looks like he missed his Y press though, so he ended up bouncing on that claptrap. Try to point it out when Fathlo gets there so you get to see the full effect. Now barrel boost. If you hold the barrel as you jump off of a ledge, you get shot out faster than normal if you're holding a barrel and you jump on the last pixel of a ledge. But the funny thing about slopes is it counts every pixel as a ledge. So if you jump holding a barrel on a slope, you automatically get that ledge boost, and it just pushes you out. And the way that the birds line up, You just sort of bounce on them without having to let go of right, and you end up just fitting very nicely in between them and skipping a whole bunch of auto barrels. Saves a good chunk of time. Fathlo also going for Joe roll there and Zero roll. That's the full roll right there. That's what we like to see. It was only found to be human viable, RTA viable very recently. Stu getting first try out of bounds clip in slip slide ride, going for under the B as well, a very risky trick. Saves about a quarter of a second at the expense of either dying or getting hit as Diddy. If you get hit as Diddy, you lose about 2.5 seconds just purely to losing your Kong, and then you also have to play out the stage as Donkey, which is significantly slower. Now Stu is on to Ice Age Alley, and this is typically the first appearance of our bird buddy Espresso. He is in a couple of levels earlier, but this is really the only one that we use him in because it's the only one it's actually faster to use him in. So notes about the bird: you want to run down slopes because you get a little bit of speed boost, and jump up slopes because similarly if you run up slopes it's a little bit slower. Also, if you get hit while you are riding any of the animal buddies, you just kind of get like catapulted in whichever direction you're facing, and a lot of times in this level it ends up being a pit and you just end up careening to your death, and it is something you can't get out of. You can't turn right or left, you can't jump up, you can't roll, you just sort of get thrown in whichever direction and end up falling into a pit sometimes, very often, because a lot of this level is over nothing. Now Stu is into Aquatic Ambiance. I'm sorry, I do that every time. Croctopus Chase. The music is Aquatic Ambiance, which is a childhood favorite of many, many people who find nostalgia in this game. David Weiss is a genius, but that's just common knowledge at this point. So the optimizations in the water levels when you're not riding on guard is to mash B as fast as you can when you're swimming upwards, because there is no cap on swim speed. So the game running at 60 FPS, if you could press B for 1 frame and then let go for 1 frame and press it again the next frame, alternating every 2 frames, alternating every frame, so pressing B every 2 frames, that would be the fastest theoretical swim speed upwards, but that's not really human viable. The other optimization is to try to cut corners as closely as possible and maintain your momentum going around them, not only left to right but also up and down. You have a lot of times where you end up going like down off of a ledge. One coming up here on Stu's screen to the left, you're going to see he swims upwards first, and then he kind of bonked that corner a little bit. We'll see it on Fathlo's screen here. So he'll swim upwards first, and then you could get that downwards momentum. You get that acceleration period, so you're going down a little bit faster, so you have that a little bit additional downward speed as you actually clear that corner. So you might think that these runners are pretty close in time just because they're in the same level, but they're actually probably still at least 50 seconds apart. Try to get a better guesstimate for you here soon. But Fathlo does have a lot of time to make up. That doesn't mean that he's out of this race by any means, though, because there are a lot of frame perfect tricks that can either save or lose a lot of time for both of these runners. One of them was kind of killed off due to the SFR, but I do anticipate that we will have some other frame perfect tricks that can be a deciding factor in this race. So now Stu's into Torchlight Trouble. Very short level, very difficult level, mostly in the dark, but you can kind of see what you're doing anyway. Lots of good rolls off of drums. These flaming drums that you get about 2 pixels on the edge of that you can roll off of without getting hit by the fire. And you do some back boost off of some clumps and crushes and whatnot. Pretty good level. So now he's going to be attempting another super jump roll. Gets Diddy wedged up on that ledge there, and he would jump off the top there, but you get him back too soon before he actually does. And he hits it no problem. This one is relatively free. There's a different mechanic with it where he rolls off of a tire when he hits that army there. It actually makes the frame window, in order to hit the super jump roll, a little bit wider, as wide as 7 frames, according to some tasters. So it's much more lenient than your typical super jump roll, which is just 1 frame. So that one is typically a lot more easy for runners to hit, and I do expect Fathlo will follow up. So Stu's now on to the second beaver boss. There's one really good optimization here where you can hang out in the upper left-hand corner there. Stu didn't show it off, but I do expect Fathlo will. And that lets you hit the beaver more optimally as he's coming down from the peak of his jump. So Fathlo, in fact, getting the ropage rumble super jump roll as well. So now he's following closely behind Stu, and Stu setting up now for a sacrificeless ODA SJR. And he gets the okay. So he got the single explosion, which means he only got a jump roll at first, but he turned back and saved it. So he did in fact get the SJR frame perfect trick. He didn't get it. His setup wasn't exactly the way that he wanted it to be, so he only got a single explosion, meaning he only got a jump roll instead of a super jump roll. But you can go back to the left, land on the ground again, roll off, and still have your super jump roll. So he salvaged it there. Fathlo typically doesn't go for that same strategy, so we'll see if he can follow up. But that also lets Stu now go for another super jump roll in this stage here, Elevator Antics. There also has been some optimizations here. He left that snake alive. I wonder if he's going to go for the SFR here. I think he might. Don't want to detract from Fathlo, though. Fathlo also just now getting the super jump roll. Stu unfortunately missed the super jump roll in Elevator Antics here, so he's going to have to play the stage out, just like Fathlo did. So that gives Fathlo a little bit of catch-up time there with Stu's setup. So far, except for Frenzy, they are frame for frame. Fathlo typically does not go for Sacrificeless ODA, so he also therefore does not go for the Elevator Antics SJR. So no time loss in theory on Fathlo's side, so only making up time there. Now Stu going for the Elevator Antics elevator skip, which is where you skip the elevator right there. Easy cycle skip. And now he is out right at 20 minutes flat. So Fathlo is going to do the same, play through this stage, take a bonus up here to skip a very significant portion of the stage, go through all that business. Now Stu is in the final water stage of the game. Poison Pond, again, you are on your buddy On Guard here. He's just off to the left in a little secret area. And you use him to clip through a lot of these mincers, just like the clams and the croctopus before. There is one very good clip coming up where you go through 3 mincers. We like to call it triple mincer clip. Surprise, surprise. We're very creative here with our names in the Donkey Kong Country community. Fathlo getting elevator skip, no problem, and exiting at 20:47 and a half maybe, so he's still just about 50 seconds behind. Stu unfortunately messed up that clip there, so he lost his fish a little bit, so that's maybe 4 or 5 seconds or so that Fathlo has to possibly make up on Stu. Now Stu's going to be heading into Minecart Madness, which has a frame perfect trick in it, but it's a little bit different. He's going to set up first a trick called Rolling Through Air, where he runs into the minecart. You cannot roll in, you cannot jump in, you run into the minecart, and then you take damage. So the game thinks you never actually left the catwalks there, and so it thinks you're still on ground, so you can roll. And anytime that you can roll, you can jump out of a roll. So the game lets you infinitely jump and roll throughout this whole stage, not in the minecart. Also getting the 2. He missed the jump roll. I expect Fathlo to go for it, so hopefully he can show that off for you. But this is, I believe, 6 seconds faster than playing out the stage normally. And if you hit the jump roll, it's anywhere between, I think, 4 and another 6 seconds faster than playing out the stage, rolling through as Stu did, depending on how many birds you hit. So we'll see if Fathlo gets the jump roll right here. He's going to go back for it a second time. Loses maybe a second or so getting it second attempt, but this is still faster than the way that Stu went through it, having to roll through, because he's going through at roll speed right now, as opposed to what Stu is doing, rolling and jumping, because anytime Stu is jumping, he lost out on speed over Fathlo. So now entering Blackout Basement here, where the lights flicker on and off every 62 frames, just over 1 second, because the game does run at 60 FPS. There are some cool extendos here, some cool tire rolls if you choose to go for them. He actually goes for one right there. Opting out of halfway, he's a brave boy and confident in his stages. There are also some rope skips through extendos. He just did one right there and one there as well. Basically, most of this stage is just muscle memory, and you learn to roll for a certain amount of time, jump for a certain amount of time, and the little visual cues that you get while the lights are off, like the bananas that still stay there, or the DK barrels and halfway barrel, those are all visible when the lights are off. Those are the visual cues you can use for when the lights are out, as opposed to what you do get to see while the lights are on. So, Stu now on to Dumb Drum, or as we like to affectionately call him, Cylinder. Basically, he just drops pairs of enemies at you, a couple critters, a couple slippas, a couple claptraps, a couple clumps, and then a couple of armies. The second cycle starts, or I'm sorry, the cycle finishes and he starts pounding the ground again after you dispatch of the second enemy. So we end up doing the beginning of the fight as Diddy, or you could do it all as Donkey, but a lot of people like to do the beginning as Diddy just because they're used to his movement. But you like to do the end as Donkey just because he dispatches the clumps and the armies here a little bit quicker, because all he has to do is just jump on them, whereas Diddy would have to roll through the clumps and he would have to hit the armies twice, since they come out rolling. Very low 24 exit for Stu there. Very good exit time out of World 5. Fathlo's still going to have a good exit time, but he's going to be, looks like 45 or so seconds behind. But now Stu is on to Tanked Up Trouble, and this is the level that can save or ruin anyone's run. This really can decide the race here, all in one fell swoop, in multiple different ways. So there are two different frame-perfect jump rolls here that can save either 55 or 42 seconds based upon the one that he hits. I think he's going to go for Creme Tut here. Opts out of it. I don't know if Stu's just not confident enough, or just doesn't like it in race situations, because there are many ways that that trick can actually end up killing you. But he is going for Bird Tut, and he was early on his roll. So there are two frame perfect tricks here now waiting on Fathlo's table, which could actually catch him up or even put him in the lead based upon which one he hits, if either. Fathlo has a lot of consistency with both of these frames. In fact, was just practicing Creme Tut at the beginning, or like practicing it before the race. So would be interesting to see if he hits one of them. Setting up for Creme Tut now. A little early on his roll there. So he rolled through the enemy instead of bouncing on him. And now he's going to set up for Bird Tut again. And he was also early. So it looks like these runners might just be a little bit anxious racing against each other. The nerves are kind of a little bit high. They both want to take this first game and then maybe be able to rax a little bit more in the second game. It's not uncommon to miss those frames. They are frame perfect tricks, but it is also good to keep in mind that their tensions might be a little bit high. They might be a little bit anxious, and that could be attributed to being early. They could attribute that to being early on both of the tricks there. So Stu has a very sizable lead at this point. Going into Manic Mincers, it's going to take a lot, probably a death, in order for Fathlo to come back. Largely in part due to the exhalation of Misty Mind's SJR. Now, most runners, I think, are typically going to go for the SFR, or Super Free Roll, in most race situations, just because it only loses 3 seconds over the frame perfect SJR and is much more consistent. So now Fathlo out of tanked up trouble, and Stu is probably about 10 seconds or so away from the end of Manic Mincers, so he's still got a pretty sizable lead on Fathlo. We'll see if Stu can hit that SFR for us and show that off. So basically what happens is you set up a super jump. So you see Diddy go off the top of the screen there. The super jump is charged. And you activate it, but you need to stop it somehow, such as landing on a rope. You climb off the bottom of the rope. It's still active, so you roll off the side there. You roll to those two guys, and he gets 4 critters. So he is rolling at max speed across the top of the stage. This loses, again, I think about 3 seconds is the number that I was given, the number that we've determined. Over optimally playing out the stage with a super jump roll. And I expect Fathlo to do the exact same. I don't expect Fathlo to go for the super jump roll here. He knows he's really far behind, but missing the super jump roll will just put him essentially an eternity behind. It'd be incomprehensible for him to come back. But he's gonna go for it. What is he? It looks like he just kind of maybe panicked a little bit and couldn't decide what he was going to do, or wasn't sure on his setup. But he is going to end up having to play out the stage without having an attempt at the super jump roll or SFR. That's good though, because then he gets to show off all the good platforming in the stage, and it looks like he's grabbing Donkey. So I think he's going to end up going for Loopy Lights SJR here. So hopefully we'll get to show off that for you. Speaking of Loopy Lights, Stu is very near the end, going to the B section as solo Diddy. So he does have to be a little bit careful, but it's really not all that tough, all things considered. Very nice Mankey roll, and Stu is now headed into Platform Perils, the very last platforming stage of the game, on very good pace. 29-24 entry, so he's having quite a good run here. As far as I'm aware, all that he's missed in terms of frames is Elevator Antics and Tut. So he also therefore unfortunately missed Platform Perils jump roll, but not a big deal. He is still far and away and ahead. I think this one is all but over. Now Fathlo setting up for Loopy Lights SJR, folks. So, taking damage. And unfortunately, he did not quite get the tire roll that he was looking for. So he's going to have to end up playing out the end of the stage. Loopy Lights SJR saves 3 seconds, whole 3 seconds, over playing out the stage normally, just because the setup is so costly and it's so close to the end of the stage. You just don't end up saving that much time over playing it out. But it is still, in fact, the most optimal way to play the stage. Just like Robridge Rumble SJR, it's off of a tire, so it is a little bit more lenient. However, the rest of the setup is much more precise. You have to duck in between a tire and a Kremling and make sure you don't get hit. You also can't move the tire, or it'll be too far away and you won't actually be able to use it in order to hit the frame. So now the last frame perfect trick attempt here on Fathlo's screen coming up, and he's therefore going to get to show off the only jump roll that's been hit. No, he also hit MCM jump roll. So this is the Platform Perils jump roll. You just go, man. You just fly straight to the right. Got nothing to worry about. This is the most satisfying thing in the All Stages speedrun, I swear. Because you know, after this, after you hit that trick, you don't have to play the end of this stage. It's a very difficult stage. And all you have left is 2 bosses, which are essentially glorified cutscenes. Neki can be a little bit difficult to optimize, but K-Rool here, as you see on Stu's screen, really all you got to do is just jump on the guy's head. Not a whole lot to worry about. But there are some optimizations, hitting him as soon as he throws his crown. But the tougher of the 2 bosses, on Fathlo's screen here, the Neki 2 fight, there is some optimizations that you can make such as what we like to call the double nut strat, where you jump over 2 nuts at once. Also, he did the optimal Diddy sacrifice. Like I mentioned before, Diddy has a longer fanfare than Donkey does, so you'd like to finish this boss as Donkey. And also, you don't get freeze frames if you take damage on a boss fight, so you get to optimally sacrifice Diddy there without any punishment, and then get that shorter fanfare. And then you get Diddy again as you come into K. Rool, but as I did mention, you can't do a frame-perfect slap slide to avoid the DK barrel there. Typically, runners don't go for it, though, because it's just kind of trolly. And it doesn't really save all that much, but it is a time-saving strategy if you do choose to go for it. So the other reason that runners typically like to end the game as DK is that they find getting optimal hits on K. Rool is a lot easier with Donkey. Just the way that he jumps, it just seems a lot easier to time the jumps. So you see the credits there on Stu's screen. Oh, wait a minute, at the end? Question mark? Debated. Not quite over yet. He has 1 phase left. So he has his run phase, cannonball phase, and then his jump phase. Same thing, 1, 2, 3 hits every time. And this race is all but wrapped up. Stu's not in any trouble, still having both of his columns left. So this looks like this one's going to be wrapped up tidy with a bow in Stu's favor. Fathlo almost exactly a minute behind, just getting the fake credits now. And cheers to you, Stu. Crack that one open for you, buddy. 33-43, very nice run. A 33 in a race is nothing to be scoffed at. 33 minute mark is something that a lot of runners will strive for as they progress into this all stages speedrun and all the difficulties that ensue. 32s are, of course, basically the pinnacle at this point. Fathlo being the only one to achieve a 31 so far. 32s are like what you would equate to like your S tier runners, you know, like the top of the top. But getting a 33 in a race is basically the best that you, not the best you could hope for, but definitely admirable. And that's what I think a lot of the top tier runners would shoot for. Really all that separated Stu from getting a 32 in this race is tanked up trouble. If he hit Bird Tut, he would have been very close, but still about 33.01, ever so slightly still a 33, but very close. So very nice runs from both the runners, still getting a 34 on Fathlo's side without even getting Forest Frenzy SJR. Died on the first attempt and then just took the regular super jump on the second attempt, also not getting any frames in Tut, and also having to play out Misty Mines. So Fathlo had a bit of a rough go of it there, but still made a very good run out of it. Nothing to be scoffed at. Less than a full minute behind Stu, so he's still in the running here. And every new run is definitely an opportunity for either runner. Alright, looks like they're not wasting any time. They have already entered the next race on SRL, so they're going to get started here real soon. Fathlo's time is blue just because that's what live split defaults to when you finish a run. Bold prediction from Cascaboom here. Unironically, exactly what Ananko said. One mistake actually decided this race entirely. If Fathlo hit Forest Frenzy SJR, this would be a whole nother story. That's about a 30-second time loss just from the death, and about a 20-second time loss taking the super jump over the super jump roll. And as you can see, that's pretty much the amount of time that separates these two runners. So they would have been very close had Fathlo hit that trick. Despite having to play out all of Misty Mines, he did make up a little bit of time having MCM and Platform Perils jump rolls, but yeah, man, this basically was decided by Frenzy, all things considered. I mean, you can point to a lot of different things, but basically, Forest Frenzy SJR decided that race right there. The runners are readying up shortly. In the meantime, I'd like to poll chat a little bit. I want all your hot takes. What is the best level in the game? Trick, track, track. That is a hot take there, Dad. Two votes for Minecart Mayhem. The snake? I have no idea what level that is, and I banned that guy. Alright. Started here in race 2. Same old story. You get your buddy Diddy back immediately, sacrifice Donkey, roll through most of the game as Diddy, solo Diddy. Now with a lot of the broader points out of the way, we can fine-tune stuff a little bit. So you like to be solo Kong on the world map because you lose 10 frames every time you transition levels on the world map, just purely for having two Kongs, because one Kong will start, and then 10 frames later the second Kong will start. And you cannot enter a level as long as one of the Kongs are moving. That's part of the reason why you need one sprite on the world map for map warp. You can use either solo Diddy, solo Donkey, or the Funky's Flight Barrel, but you need one single sprite, otherwise you cannot do map warp because one of your Kongs will be moving at any one time if you have two Kongs on the world map. So Another thing to note, you roll through barrels a couple times. Here in particular, at the beginning of this stage, the Y button does a lot of things. It lets you roll, it lets you run, and it lets you pick up objects. So in the beginning here, you have to tap Y and release it in order to start your roll, but you need it released in order to roll through that barrel without picking it up. We'll do that again a couple other times, particularly in Minecart Carnage in 2.2. You'll see that as well. Another thing here, very important, I think we might see it on Stu's screen. Nope, never mind. Need bad bin account. Must be a bad player. I don't know why Fathlo's bin account's so low, actually. That's very strange. But another thing, if you're going to do multiple races in a row, it's important to reset your console in between. You'll see in the next level, they'll get a Rambi token. Fathlo taking a very unusual hit there. I'm not sure that I've ever seen him take that hit there before, but he does get Sharkless. So nice shark skip to compensate for that. Doesn't make up all the time fully, unfortunately, but he is about 3.5, maybe 4 seconds behind here. Not too much of a big deal. Again, there is a lot of time to be saved or lost throughout this game. Particularly, it's going to be those big frame perfect tricks that are going to end up costing him a lot of time. But that Rambi token right there, you just saw Fathlo pick up. You see he only had one. That's because he did a soft reset on his console in between the two races. If you don't, if you play through the game, if you pick up tokens, play through the game, and then it'll take you back to the start menu. If you start up any file, whether it was the same file or a different one or a brand new game, it'll carry over your animal token count. So if you do 3 races in a row and you follow the same route, you're going to end up hitting a third Rambi token there, and it sends you into a bonus game. Basically, you lose about 2 minutes guaranteed no matter what. And then when you come back in, it puts you in at the beginning of the level. So that is very, very costly. You want to make sure that you reset your console, hard or soft. Either way, you can full power off or just hit the reset button in between runs if you're going to do multiple in a row. Very cool extendo here. You're going to see on Fathlo's screen. Stu just did it. Lets you roll on that bird through that critter. Very, very satisfying to hit. It makes this level just flow so well. Also rolling off that can to the bird, little wiggle back and forth right there. There is a frame perfect clip you can do through that last dumb drum and underneath that beaver. It's not typically gone for an RTA just because it is frame perfect. So you might see the runners jump in the minecarts there. You actually see 3 frames if you jump immediately as you land in the minecart. Just gets you started a little bit faster. Something else that I might not have mentioned fully that you should get to see in this stage is crawl space zips. So I mentioned that you've hold down and you jump through a crawl space. You can skip that crawling animation. You can jump through, skip the bees right there, just like Stu did. As you saw on the right-hand side, Fathlo pressed Y to roll. If you roll while you are jumping through a crawl space, it zips you out to whichever side you are closer to. So it lets you skip a good chunk of distance. Both runners, I believe, getting spooky jump no problem. Stu didn't have that same issue did the first time. And some nice turtles through the stage, and they're out. Now the stop and go station, very easy, just go back out through the entrance, warps you to the end. The interesting point about this level, it has this exclusive enemy, this unique enemy called the Rock Croc. They're turned on and off by these barrels, and even while they're on, they cannot hurt you as long as you're rolling. So it just works out really well. You follow these patterns of rolls and jumps as you come in the stage, and you end up just rolling straight through them without getting hurt. Stu setting up the super jump and Fathlo as well. Goes off without a hitch. Fathlo going for the swaggy back boost there. That is typically the task strat. The strat that Stu went for is, I believe, about or equal to the same speed. I don't think that actually loses anything. So, Neki, the two Neki fights are the only two instances of RNG in the entire game. Whether he spawns on the top or the bottom, the left or the right, it's random. The first spawn is always in the upper right-hand corner. After that, it's random, whether it's top or bottom, left or right. The right or left don't really matter so much, but what does matter is whether it's on the top or the bottom. The bottom hits don't lose time. They're just a lot easier to hit, all except for the last one, because Neki does have to fall from whatever height he is down to the ground. So you actually do end up losing time if the last spawn is a top spawn. So there is an alternate strat here that a lot of runners used to do. There's a tire roll. This tire roll you see, the tire that you see Stu just bounce off of right there, and Fathlo bounce off of right there. People used to do a tire roll off of it, but it was found that that strat is actually slower just due to the difference in rolling frames. So now we're back into Forest Frenzy, and we're going to see them set up the super jump roll again. Stu setting it up. Do a couple jumps there just to manipulate the way that the Kremlings spawn in, and he hits it again. That 90% consistency really coming through for him, and Fathlo falling up in suit, no problem. 4 Krems for the both of them, rolling at max speed across the top of the stage. Saves about 20 seconds overdoing the jump roll. I'm sorry, overdoing the super jump, and the super jump saves... Oh geez, I don't even know. This stage takes basically an eternity to play out. It's actually faster to die and set up the super jump again rather than playing it out the vanilla way, just because it's about a 30-second death. So if you do end up messing up the super jump for one reason or another, it's faster just to take a death and do it again as long as you have the lives to do it. So Stu showing off some good extendos there. We'll see Fathlo follow up. Fathlo's paused. Okay, we're fixed. Everything's better. So lots of good extendos through here and some rope skips and that rope skip that Stu does at the end is still spooking me out. But there is also a extendo in this stage, Temple Tempest, named after Fathlo because he found a way to make it RTA viable. Pretty tricky though, and the savings are kind of minimal at the expense of dying. It's just after halfway. I don't expect either runner to go for it in a race situation just because it is such a small save. Alright, so Stu getting map warp, no problem. Fathlo gonna go for the same. And back into Clam Chowder. Fathlo also no problem with the map warp there. And now he's gonna be close on Stu's heels into Clam City. Again here, the optimizations are just cutting those corners as closely as you can. Particularly with On Guard, there is some strange interaction that he has with corners. You sort of just get like a little bit of a boost. Fathlo bonked that corner a little bit there, but if you watch around this next corner, you'll see he just kind of gets like boosted a little bit further. Right. Yeah, there you go. A little bit. And Stu now into the B fight. Again, just hit the B as soon as she turns yellow. And she swoops at you 3, 4, 5 times. Increasing number. Fathlo getting the clam clip there on the right-hand side. The clams, clambos, the mincers, and the croctopus are the 3 water enemies that you can't dispatch, can't knock away or whatever as On Guard, so instead you just end up clipping through them because you're invincible while you're lunging, and they're always invincible and you just can't get rid of them. So you end up in this sort of standoff and you just end up going straight through. Stu having no problem with the B-Boss ending the very low 11 minutes exit, which is typically what a world record run would be looking for. Again, getting Joe roll and getting the full Zera roll. Very nice. Following up after the last run where he had a little bit of trouble there. Fathlo now going into Snow Barrel as well. Stu getting Barrel Bounce. Very nice. Typically Joe roll doesn't give a lot of top runners an issue, but if you do mess it up, if you press Y too early, you'll end up grabbing that DK barrel and basically just end up sliding into your death, because this game does have ice physics. You do slip on the ice, so if you press Y too soon, you'll end up picking up that barrel, and before you can even throw it away or jump or do anything else, you'll slide off straight into the pit. Also, if you roll too early, you will you'll not bridge the gap, and you will you just fall straight into the pit. Nice underbarrel there from Fathlo. I believe that's a 6-frame window to press the jump button as you roll off into the abyss. Stu going for under the B and that first rope from the underside. So now we are all tied up going into slipside ride. Unfortunate there. Usually what ends up happening there, if you mess up under the B, you'll probably just end up getting hit, as Diddy in by one of those Bs, lose a handful of seconds. But he, the madman with balls of steel, goes for it again. Doesn't even flinch. Some nice rope climbing by both runners, actually. And we're going to be more or less even going into Ice Age Alley. Stu's on his bird and he's off and away. Same for Fathlo. Interesting note about the bird, it runs faster on the ground. I should say it is a he. Runs faster on the ground if you hold the Y button, but if you hold the Y and you jump and you flap, it ends up sort of saving that Y state, such that you don't need to hold Y anymore. And you will always run at max speed instead of walking. I'm not sure why exactly that works, but you only need to press and hold Y for the first time that you jump and then flap. Both runners exiting Ice Age Alley, no problem. Fathlo getting hit there, I don't know, maybe about half a second or something just to getting hit. And we are pretty close here going into Croctopus Chase. The level is about 2 minutes and 20 seconds long or so, depending upon your skill level and your optimizations, your corners, your mashing and whatnot. Usually you use a audio cue at the very end of the stage to sort of determine how well you executed the stage. There is a little bit of a piano refrain. You'll hear it once in the middle of the stage. You'll hear it again towards the end. And if you hear that piano cue, we say you had 1 through 6 pianos or whatever it is. But if you don't hear it, we like to call that pianoless, and that is what most runners would consider optimally playing the stage. If you make some drastic mistake, though, there's sort of 6 notes and then a little break and then 6 more notes. Depending on when you exit, you might say you got 8 or 10 or whatever it is. But typically runners of this caliber, both Fathlos and Stus, will strive for pianoless. I don't know if either of them have ever gotten pianoless, actually. It's still kind of uncommon, all things considered, their skill and all that, but it is definitely something for top-tier runners to strive for. There is one more optimization to this stage that you typically won't see RTA. We like to call it bird croc. Through a couple of glitches, you can actually take your buddy Espresso from the previous level, Ice Age Alley, into this level, Croctopus Chase, and basically the bird has no concept of walls, and you end up jumping through walls and ceilings and floors. You do a lot of out-of-bounds clipping, and you end up playing the stage faster. I believe it saves 7 seconds or something like that in TAS, which does a lot of off-screen inputs and stuff like that. Really hard to duplicate IRL, RTA rather, but it is still possible for humans to do, just usually it's not faster. Fathlo taking the lead there due to Stu taking damage on one of the oil drums there. He's going to have about 3 seconds or so on Stu, so still a very close race. Now we're going to go into Ropage Rumble, hoping for that SJR. If not, they're going to lose about 20 seconds. The SJR itself saves, I think, 8 over playing the stage optimally, just because the setup takes roughly an eternity. Fathlo hitting the frame, and Stu hitting it as well, so they're both going to be flying over this beautiful stage. I know Jess said in the break that it was her favorite. Easy. There is a lot of good movement in this stage. There are a couple of good extendos, lots of really fun tire rolls, some cycle skips and whatnot. There's a back boost at the end. It's a really difficult stage, really fun to play out. Can be very punishing if you do it wrong, but it's very satisfying to learn and play optimally. But what is, of course, even more satisfying is getting the super jump roll there. So Fathlo showing off those corners that I was talking about before. While you're up in that corner, you are able to hit Naughty on the first frame that he is vulnerable as he comes down from the apex of his jump. That's the only way to get high enough up there to actually hit him as he becomes vulnerable. One more way to make that fight faster is to run one of your Kongs into him in between hitting him, but then you wouldn't be able to go for the super jump roll here, so we don't go for that in the typical all stages route. Fathlo not even blinking and hitting the ODA SJR again, second time in a row. And here he's going to save about 26 seconds over Stu, who's going to have to play out the whole stage. Stu is keeping Donkey with him, though, so he's going to lose a little bit of time on the overworld just having 2 Kongs, lose a little bit of time in various places as well just because of lag frames, having 2 Kongs and too many sprites on the screen at the same time. But it will also allow him to attempt Elevator Antics SJR, or as we like to call it properly, FRM. That is spelled FRM, by the way. Now Fathlo has a pretty sizable lead here on Stu, but again, all things can change with a death, with a change of frame, and whatnot. So Stu cannot make up this whole difference just with the SJR here, but he can make up a good chunk of it. I believe Elevator Antics SJR is worth about 14, so it's not the whole deficit, but he can make up a whole lot. Looks like Fathlo is having his typical net issues that he does have on occasion. His ISP's sort of been letting him down a little bit lately. It's kind of funny, actually. The night that he got, or I should say the night he improved the world record to 31:59, he just did that, and then like immediately afterward, as he was like trying to talk about it, his net just totally started crapping out, we'll say. So Stu didn't get the SJR there, and in fact ended up losing, I think it's something like 10, having to set it up there. So he is now digging himself further into the hole, but I do believe at this point that is a worthwhile gamble, just because of the tightness and the proficiency of level of play between both players. You really can't bank on either one of them like dying. You really just have to hope that you do some strat that the other player doesn't do, or pull something out like a frame somewhere, because you really just can't bank on like those rookie level deaths, like dying in some level just because it's typically difficult or something, because these runners are very, very practiced and their runs are very polished. They've done lots and lots of races, so they typically have nerves of steel coming in here. Fathlo showing off triple mincer clip, no problem, by the way. Didn't mention it, but we'll get to see Stu attempt it here in about 15 seconds as well. And now Fathlo is going to be setting up rolling through air again on his PowerPoint presentation. Stu going for triple mincer, 1, 2, 3, easy every time. And Fathlo rolling through the first bird. Looks like he was late on the jump roll there. So the problem with setting up this jump roll, it takes a lot of time. And if you are late, you end up bouncing off the bird, which cancels your rolling through air glitch. Because the game decides you are no longer on land, and you instead have bounced off of a bird. But he gets it the second time around, still 15, I'm going to say 15 or so ahead of Stu, maybe not that much. Stu opting out, I believe. Didn't look like he went for it, just kind of going about his rolly way. Getting the 2 though, because that is pretty much the only optimization that runners will go for in terms of hitting birds. That one just is kind of a gimme, basically just based upon the way you roll and jump typically, and the gaps in between. The only other optimization to this stage after your rolling through air glitch is a couple of tire rolls off of tires into minecarts, particularly the 3rd and 4th, which knock a crash out of the way, which otherwise you would have to jump on. So that saves, I believe, about second half on each of them. One more tire roll that runners typically don't go for on that last one there. You just saw Stu go under. You can save 0.2 if you do a tire roll off of that tire on the top there. Back into Blackout Basement, you see Fathlo grabbing that on-guard token and still only having 1 because he did reset his console. That's another one that runners will typically run into in their all stages route, so it's another place that you have to worry about getting too many tokens. If you die in this stage before you grab halfway or before completing it, if you run the same route every time, you'll end up getting that token because it does respawn every time you enter the stage. So if you do grab that token twice and then die again before halfway, say, and then you come back in, you're going to have to avoid that token in order to not get that bonus stage, which again will lose you about 2 minutes. Stu now following up. Fathlo coming into Dum Drum. Typically, the swag here that most runners like to show off is the slap slide. It is a frame perfect trick. If you press down and Y at the same time, Donkey will slap the ground. If you also press a direction left or right on the same frame as when you slap, it will not only do a slap, but you'll also slide in whichever direction you go. And if you do it as you are landing, it widens that window to 2 whole frames. So Fathlo still with a sub 25 exit, pretty good. I think it was around 24:35 or so, and Stu around 24:47 or so, I believe, was the banana drop. So they're still very, very close. Again, tanked up trouble here. This could be the decider of the entire race, the entire series between these two guys if it goes one way or the other. There are, again, 2 frame perfect tricks. Stu did not go for Creme Tut last time. Don't know if he just wasn't feeling it or he was trying to play safe. Not sure. He opted out of it last time. Fathlo opting out of it this time, it looks like. He just didn't even go for it. I wonder... I'm sure he's watching Stu. Oh, all right. Stu's got to follow up here. He opts out of Creme Tut. Let's see if he can follow up on Fathlo's Bird Tut here. Here's the setup. And that is a significant lead for Fathlo here. He is no less than 50 seconds ahead. in this race. Again, these runners are very polished, and they really can't hope for like the other runner to die or something like that, just because of their level of play. And with the metaphoric death of the Misty Minds SJR now due to the SFR, this one's not over, but something big is going to have to happen in order for a lead change to occur here. Didn't mention it before, but this is the one and only appearance of our rhino buddy, Rambi. Rambi the Rhinoceros has an inherent, natural, programmed-in input lag. If you press the jump button a couple frames later, Rambi will actually end up jumping. The developers did this intentionally to make Rambi a little bit more clunky, make him feel heavier, like you're actually wielding this rhinoceros, not just some little bird or whatever, like Espresso that you're riding, but actually this big, heavy rhinoceros, sort of give him that thick feeling, right? So now going into Misty Minds, Fathlo and Stu exactly one Manic Mincers behind. Fathlo now setting up the super jump roll there. Let's see if he can conquer his fears. And setting up the SFR. 1, 2, 3, and looks like he's gonna have to end up playing out the stage. He got too low there and ended up rolling back on the ground. I'm not sure, but I believe he could have ducked and rolled off the edge again. All the details aren't quite ironed out yet, but this is going to be about a 25 or so second loss for Fathlo, having to play out the stage here. And I'm sure Stu is going to follow up with the Misty Minds SFR, the super free roll, just found yesterday. So both the runners haven't had a whole lot of time to practice this up. So no knocks against Fathlo. This is not an easy strategy, and he hasn't had a whole lot of time to perfect it. So this is something very new, and nothing to be taken lightly at this point. Now Fathlo heading into Loopy Lights with both of his Kongs. Wink, wink. I'm gonna hope that he goes for the SJR, but given that he's ahead, if he knows that he's ahead, I think he's going to opt out of it. If he knows his relative position to Stu, I think he's going to opt out. Nice Swedish roll or multinational roll, depending on your preference of naming. Yeah, he's going to opt out of Loopy Lights SJR there. It's just way too risky and costs too much to set up. I think he has a pretty good grasp of where he is as opposed to Stu. And I think he knows that even if he misses Platform Peril's jump roll, which is the last sort of big time save, the last frame perfect trick here that Stu can make up on him, assuming Fathlo misses it, assuming Stu hits it, if they both play out optimally to the best of their ability, that jump roll aside, I think Stu is still gonna be behind on this one. Just based upon where they are right now, barring something tragic happening. And I'm thinking Fathlo did that math in his head, and he knows relatively where he is. Still not backing out of any of these tough strats here, going for all the back boosts and everything that you would see in a top quality run of his. Late on the jump roll there, as you saw him bounce off of that army right there. Didn't get that back boost. That's interesting. Good thing he didn't get hit though, but he is going to have to play out the end of this stage and show you all the swag that he has in his bag. Double naughty extender right there. We'd like to call $0.0.00, the free double naughty extendo. Stu also late on the Platform Perils jump roll there. I believe that's 2 times in a row for Stu there. And Stu also has a pretty clean end to his Platform Perils. The amount of time that Platform Perils jump roll saves is highly variable. There are lots of cycles and platforms and whatnot that you can skip, lots of ways you can optimize the stage and make it go faster. The number we like to use is about 12. How much time that you would save. And unfortunately, Stu taking a death there, so that is probably the last nail in the coffin for this run on Stu's side. Unfortunately, Fathlo doing his Diddy sacrifice, ending with Donkey, and he is on to K. Rool. He's looking at a 33, 40, 33, 39, something like that, if I can do math right. I believe I saw his time correctly. So Stu is going to end up having to play at the second half of the stage, take that back boost there. Works better the second time around. Very unfortunate that he took that death there, because that was literally the last hard trick that he had to go through. So it looks like, don't want to call things too early, don't want to curse anyone, you know, commentators curse and all that, but it looks like we are going to game 3 here, folks. You all know this is exactly what you wanted to see. This is the Battle of the Titans here, let's be honest. So who doesn't want more S-tier Donkey Kong Country all stages runs? Stu also sacrificing his Diddy, ending with Donkey, and he's looking at a 34, 36, I'm gonna say, something like that. So it looks like the runners just about swapped times from the last race, and not just due to frames here. There actually were some deaths, there actually were some mistakes. Yes, Fathlo did hit Bird Tut when Stu didn't, which is a large part of Stu's deficit. But there were other mistakes and other variances between. It can't just be attributed to that one frame perfect trick. Lots of differences here. And of course it's not over yet, so we can't really draw the curtain on it. So Fathlo going through the credits here, the quote-unquote fake credits, where you can see that the coloring credits and, I'm sorry, the coloring, coding, what else, characters, and I think like commander or something, all that business, all those K letters, K words were done by the various Kremlings, because for whatever reason, Rare has this affinity for swapping out C's for K's like it's Mortal Kombat. And Fathlo is on the last cycle here, swapping or sacrificing Donkey for swag, I guess? Not really sure. That might just help him get an optimal last hit there, but he is getting a 33-38, very close to Stu's time from the last run. I believe Stu got a 33-43, so a handful of seconds faster than Stu's previous run. And Stu is, I think, going for that mid 34 here, just like Fathlo had last time around. So it is pretty much going to be just the opposite of that last race that we had. Stu on the last cycle right here. Boom. A little bit too slow, didn't quite get the world record of 34, but he did get a 34-34, a little under a minute behind Fathlo, so that death in Platform Perils in combination with Fathlo's hitting Bird Tut is more than enough to put Fathlo ahead in this round 2. So we are going on to game 3, and this is where we might see a little bit of fatigue between the two runners, depending on how much rest they want to take in between this run and the next one. I'm not sure if we're just going to jump right into it, if they're chomping at the bit, or if it's going to be a little bit of a break. But in the meantime, now that we know everyone's stages, I would like to hear your favorite song from DKC. This is an objective question. There is a right answer and there are wrong answers. You will be graded on your responses. Expect to be banned if you are wrong. Katoon's got the right answer. Nova also with a good answer. I'm not sure that it's canon, not sure that it's something developed by Rareware and composed by David Wise, but I will accept it. Free Kill and Aimless extending into later editions in the trilogy. Ash with a hot take, very uncommon pick, also very seldomly heard. Not sure that that's anyone that I've ever heard before started Squash. Jess, what you are looking for is Crystal Chant, and that is the correct answer. Katoon asking for Nay in the official rendition of Aquatic Ambiance, the official remix. ODA is Fear Factory, that's correct. Ice Cave Chant, I believe, is in DKC 2. That might be DKC 2, I'm not sure, but it's Crystal Chant in this one. Smalls _ Ban and Onkos, please. All right. We got some good answers. Okay, so now the real question that everyone has been waiting for. Aimless Dude is already answering the question I was going to ask. Who is the best Kong? Don't get nasty. I don't even have a sword here, man. You don't have to worry about it. Stop using that word. Nobody likes it. It's not that. It's called Frim. Stop it. Junior 2. Very good answer. Nice one, Ash. I like that. King Kong? Very controversial. Not an answer that I've heard before to this question, but I guess still an appropriate answer? Yeah. I mean... yeah. Nice one. Yo, you want more questions? Just so you can say this again? Alright. I'm literally setting you up for this one, Ananka. Who is your favorite enemy in this game? That was the third question that I wanted to ask anyway. But you're basically asking for it at this point. Let's be real. Alright. SRL channel is up. The runners have started. Or the race has started, I should say. So the runners will be started here on the restream very shortly. What? What? Anankos, get out. Just leave now, please. You're embarrassing yourself. Okay, here we are, back again in one. Jungle Hijinks is, I think, the name of the level. I don't usually call it anything else other than 1-1. Something about the first few levels, I usually just call. I think it's called Jungle Hijinks. I'm pretty sure it is. I've been playing this game for 20 years. I don't know the name. Jungle Hijinks. It is. Okay. I usually just call it 1-1, and then Ropey Rampage is always 1-2 to me. I never actually call it Ropey Rampage. But anyway, so here we are. Ropey Rampage. Didn't mention it before, I don't think, but this and Elevator Antics are the only two instances in the typical all stages run where we take a bonus in order to skip a significant portion of the stage. There is also an SFR in Ropey Rampage. There is also an SJR in Ropey Rampage. The SJR does save time. It saves 1 second. But being a frame perfect trick, it's typically not good for an RTA. Just because it's another frame and it's hard to hit. It's also really, really inconsistent and difficult to set up for the sole benefit of 1 second. So most runners do not go for it, and I don't think anybody has ever gone for it in a race. The SFR that we have loses, I believe, 3 seconds over taking the bonus. So again, that is not a time-saving strat, so these runners are not going for it. There is also an SFR in Temple Tempest. What? Fathlo taking a death very unexpectedly. It looked like he turned back to the left. I'm not sure why. So that's going to set him back about 30 seconds. We don't get halfway in this stage just because it's so far out of the way. So he's going to be at a huge deficit here from the get-go. So he has... Stu's got his work cut out for him. Looks like Fathlo might even be a little bit spooked after that. Being careful on that last critter exiting 1-3. Reptile Rumble. Yeah, I'm like flabbergasted. That is a very atypical death that for you to see at this level of play, at any level of play, honestly. But Fathlo will obviously do his best to make that up, and we'll see how much of a gap he can close. Don't want to compare things, analyze things a little bit too much, but I do think that Fathlo does have just a little bit of an edge in terms of movement over Stu. I think he does have a little bit of an edge there, but Stu does have a lot of consistency in his races, in his runs in general. He's a very consistent runner. He's very good at hitting his visual cues, and he has them for everything. I think given unlimited resets, Fathlo would be able to come up with a better time every time. However, in a race situation, Stu could be able to prevail just because he is so much more consistent and hits things better, we'll say, on average, than Fathlo might, just because Fathlo tends to go for some very risky strats. Not to say that Stu doesn't, just like really, really minimal things that would save a handful of frames and whatnot here and there, which is, of course, the difference between the very good and the very best, you know. So Fathlo with a 418 exit from World 1, that's about 35, can I do math? 25? 35 seconds behind where he wants to be. Typically you want to get out around 343. So that is not what he's looking for there. So he is going to be trailing for a long ways. One thing that he can really hope for in the beginning here, in order to even things out, is Stu messing up Forest Frenzy SJR as Fathlo did in that first race. But again, with Stu's reputed 90% consistency with that trick, it is highly unlikely that he messes it up. However, it's still possible. You know, anything can happen. it's anybody's game, it's anybody's frame. Lots can go wrong in lots of stages, but in order for Fathlo to catch up that gap, he's gonna need something cataclysmic from Stu here. The snake isn't even worth 30 seconds. Anankos, quit it. I think it's about 14 over optimal. So now Stu back into Millstone Mayhem. The reason that I make a big deal out of this stage is it is very long to play out casually, and the alternate strat to having to do this super jump is quite painstaking, loses a little bit of time, a little bit inconsistent, but Stu gets it no problem. The other option is what we like to call tog, or tire over gap. You have to go further to the right in order to break a tire out of the ground, push that tire over a gap, and if you don't get it over the gap, it falls in the gap and you cannot get into the warp barrel. So that is why we use the super jump here, not only because it's faster, but also because it's easier, more consistent, and Fathlo is just going to take a death here. He's not even going to tire over because Donkey actually despawned. He was too low there, so now he's going to go back into stop and go. Quickest place to grab a second Kong is to go back through that warp. Call that commentator's curse. Fathlo, I owe you money or something because that is entirely my fault. I mentioned it, I talked about super jump, and I jinxed you. That's on me. So now he's setting up the second time around, and you see Donkey jump up the top of the screen. So he's got his super jump charged, going for that swaggy back boost. Task strats, he actually winds up to throw the barrel with Diddy. And when Diddy does that, he reaches back behind him, so he breaks open the barrel on a crusher that's behind him and then ends up getting hit. 5 gift subs to Fathlo channel. Yeah, pretty much. Okay, so now Stu is already into, and he's going to be working on that SJR. I have all but decided this race, essentially, killing Fathlo and putting him so far behind. He's getting a 740 exit from World 2, which is over a minute behind where he wants to be. Good World 2 exits are typically around like 636, 637, something like that. So he is hurting. Stu also getting the Forest Frenzy super jump roll, so he is having the time of his life. He is far and away ahead on this run so far. Good point, Anankos, 3 of 3 in Frenzy. As to be expected from somebody who has 90% consistency with that trick, though. But very good on him. Either way, in a race situation, you know your nerves can be tuned up, and it might be able to might set you off a little bit. Also, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but getting some rope skips. The first one earlier and the second one right there. Kind of counterintuitive at first, but they're really not that difficult. Saves about a second or so. Fathlo setting up the second SJR now, and just going straight up for the super jump. It looked like he did double back a little bit, but it seemed like the critter that you normally do the super jump off of was not set correctly. He did still get the super jump though, so it was still possible for him to get the super jump roll, and he did look like he backed off to the left a little bit, so he might have still gone for it, but he still turned back to the right very quickly. He might have realized very soon that he ended up not being in a good situation or setup to get it. Coming down a little bit too late, so he didn't get to roll through those last 2 Kremlings. I think that's about a second or so, maybe 2 loss. Again, all things considered, he's about a minute and a half back here at this point. So he is hoping and praying for Stu to screw up somehow massively here. As I sort of mentioned in the break, this third run is where we would typically see runners get a little bit of fatigue having to do 3 races back to back. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing on Fathlo's side. First with that death in Reptile Rumble. Again, very, very atypical death that you would not see from runners of this quality, especially in a race situation. Doing PB attempts, sometimes you kind of get into the zone and just sort of forget about what you're doing. But in a race, especially of this magnitude, they definitely would be tuned in and honed in on what they're doing. And I think that is just simply and purely a matter of playing this game too many times in a row and being a little bit tired with it. The millstone mishap that we had on Fathlo's side, that just sort of happens from time to time based upon the camera and where you end up taking damage and where Donkey is and where Diddy is and whatnot. I heard from my good buddy DNA423 that he gets it about 1 in every 50 attempts. It just sort of happens. I've personally never experienced it, but if you go for that optimal hit as far up as you can on that slope, it just sort of happens, just the way that the camera goes. Doesn't really help you out there. So now Stu is 1 clam chowder and 1 queen bee ahead of Fathlo. Again, that's about 1:30 that he is ahead right now. So he can afford to play really safely if he's watching Fathlo's stream. I don't know that he is. I would have to assume, because I think he typically tunes into that sort of stuff, but I don't know. I can't say for sure. Again, he could miss, I think, every frame for like the rest of the game and still have a pretty cushy lead, depending on Fathlo's play. He could even opt out of a lot of the more risky strats, like under the bee, cough, cough, Stu, if you're listening. That's something that he doesn't need to go for right now. Quarter of a second, because he does have about 90 seconds on Fathlo right now. Stu getting that first try out of bounds clip, no problem. You'll see that first try typically from these higher tier runners, and looks like Stu listened. He did indeed opt out of the under the bee. May not be listening to stream. He may have just opted out because, and that could be a large part in what ended up costing him the last race. It is sort of a mind game. When you mess up once in this game, it just sort of sets the tone for the whole rest of the run for you. You may sour your mood or just like view everything differently, we'll say. I don't want to use too many strong words, but it's not uncommon to get tilted at one mistake, especially in a race situation, and then carry that over into later stages, later worlds even, because you keep dwelling on it and thinking about it. So now Stu exiting Ice Age Alley as Fathlo is exiting Snow Barrel Blast. Looks like we're going to see both runners in Croctopus Chase at the same time, but again, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're very close, because this stage is about 2 minutes and 20 seconds or so. So Fathlo getting that out of bounds clip, easy peasy. Stu cutting those corners and mashing that B button. Let's see Fathlo's ropes here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He messed up a little bit there, but that's still okay. Still pretty decent climb. Sort of just one botched jump, not really much of an issue. And now back into Ice Age Alley for again, just this typical muscle memory stage. Honestly, you just sort of learn to jump at the points, flap at the same points. You just sort of mash in the air this whole time, and you may have a point where you decide to mash slower or let go in order to catch that slope. Fathlo opts out of it this time around because it can be risky. Looks like you got sort of a half bounce off that tire right there. Typically you bounce up to where that claptrap is, but it looked like he only got to that sort of lower level. But he got around it no problem. Just sort of jump up a little bit, double back a little, and out of there no problem. As predicted, both runners Croctopus Chase at the same time. they're in the same level, so they must be really close. Whereas they are actually still about a minute and a half apart, I believe. Get better estimate for you here as they leave this stage. But again, this is really all about cutting corners, very minor optimizations, but it can lead up to major savings of 5+ seconds depending on how you play it out. I've done a lot of talking, and this is Aquatic Ambiance, so I'll let you guys listen. So you heard that piano frame at the end. On Stu's side, we are using Stu's audio. He heard all 6 pianos and a little bit after that, so it wasn't quite what you would expect in terms of an optimal Croctopus chase, but it was still pretty good. Now he's on to Torchlight Trouble. So in all the dark levels in the game, the developers give you a little bit to combat that. In this level, you get Baby Squawks, and he holds this little lantern for you and follows you around, but it does take time to get him out of the barrel, and he also does cause, I'm sorry, out of the crate. He also does cause a lot of visual lag with his lantern, his light, and so runners will typically opt out of picking him up because you can mostly see what you're doing anyway, and he purely just loses time. Like, that is all there is. There is no time saving picking him up. Stu does not get Rope Bridge Rumble SJR. So Fathlo has a theoretical about 20 seconds that he could save over Stu here. Stu grabbing Donkey there, I guess just as a safety, or maybe, in fact, because of this platform skip that he's doing right here, you get a little bit of a buffer there. You get this little section where you get freeze frames as you get Donkey back, because there is that barrel there that breaks open as you touch it. It's not a throwable barrel. It just breaks when you come in contact with it. A lot of runners find that awkward to time your jump after those freeze frames. So he may have just opted to pick up Donkey early so he didn't have to deal with that and just could roll on straight through on that cycle skip. Stu also showing off the first corner up there, but not going for the third one, or not getting the third one, I should say. So now Fathlo coming into Rope Bridge Rumble SJR. Oh, well, Rope Bridge Rumble will hope he can get the SJR, close up this gap a little bit, and give you guys a little bit of a tighter race, a little bit more of a nail biter, as Stu is simultaneously setting up for ODA SJR. And he hits it straight up, doesn't even get the single explosion. Fathlo also missing Rope Bridge Rumble SJR. Again, it's probably at this point just due to exhaustion, playing this game too long. Not taking damage though, not dying or anything. So the losses there are pretty minimal. You saw the sort of freeze frames that Fathlo got there on his side as he hit that barrel, and then he opted out of that second cycle skip. It just can be kind of awkward, honestly, to time the jump and roll off of that, just because you sort of sit there in anticipation, waiting to get control back as you break your Donkey Kong out of your barrel. So Stu, oh, interesting. I guess he botched his roll there, and now is not only playing as Donkey right now, but he is not going to be able to go for the Frim Elevator Antics SJR, to use the proper term. He's going to have to play the stage out, and Fathlo is going to be following close behind in, not really close behind, but following him up in ODA. So Stu not going to be able to hit Frim in this bracket match, unfortunately. Fathlo also following up, no problem. 3 for 3, I'm gonna say, on ODA. Pretty sure Fathlo's 3 for 3 on ODA here. He does go for the usual method, the typical method, vanilla, whatever you want to call it. the one that everyone goes for, not sacrificeless. So he will not be able to go for elevator antics SGR. But this is the typical route that most people learn, that most people go for, that he is much more comfortable with, and a lot of runners find more consistent. Not to say that one is better than the other, but that's just what he knows, so that's what he does. And he has hit it, I believe, all 3 races tonight. So he's actually been more consistent with that than both Frenzy SJR and RBR SGR, which is something in and of itself. Opting out of picking up Donkey just to save those frames. He's not going to pick Donkey back up until Minecart Madness, I believe, is typically when he picks him back up, just to save those overworld frames, not having 2 Kongs, and also in some places lag frames from having 2 Kongs and having more sprites on the screen. Also going for a very difficult trick called auto roll right there. You don't see that very often. It saves very minimal amounts. There are a handful of tricks in this stage. Oh no! Fathlo. I don't think he grabs halfway either. Yeah, so he has to go all the way to the beginning. Oh my. Well, so Fathlo has finally let his greed get the best of him, and unfortunately taking a second death right there. Looks like we are going to see a forfeit here, I think, judging by seeing him sit on the world map right now. Either that or... Okay, he was just cooling off a little bit. He's gonna go again. Just need to shake things out. But Stu hitting Minecart Madness jump roll, and that is probably going to be the end there for Fathlo, if I had to guess. He stopped his timer, so I think he's probably going to end up forfeiting here. Very good race, though. Very good showing by both runners. I think he's just going to let this one ride, see what Stu does. Stu just has to play, not game over, not crash the game and all that stuff. Barring something catastrophic on Stu's side, like power outage or this one is Stu's now. And for Fathlo has officially forfeit the race on SRL. I think he just sort of reached his limit there with elevator antics. Very good running on both runners' parts. Lots of good races. It just ended up that the game was too strong, and some days that's just the way that it goes. This game can be very, very unforgiving, especially when you're going for all the difficult and tight tricks that Fathlo likes to go for. He typically doesn't pick up Donkey in elevator antics just to save that handful of frames. He also typically doesn't grab halfway in elevator antics just to save a handful of frames. Not getting halfway in elevator antics saves you, or lets you get 1 extra roll, which saves you a handful of frames over just running through that section, at the cost of probably like 30-45 seconds. I don't have the times, but it's got to be at least that much, just due to not getting halfway there and having to start all the way over. So this is very unfortunate for Fathlo, but I can completely understand where he's coming from. So we'll just wait for Stu to play this one out. I'm being told by Ash Ketchum649, Pokemon Master, that Stu is on PB pace despite missing ODA. No, he did hit ODA, right? Yeah, I think he hit ODA. Forfeit, that's an interesting one. I've not seen that displayed before, but I guess it's there. So we'll see if he grows some balls. No, he's not going to go for it. No knocks against Stu. That is a very, very scary trick. A lot of runners typically don't go for it. It can be very disastrous in a lot of situations. So not going for Kremtut is not a huge issue, but in fact, it pays off for him because he hits Birdtut. So not as much savings as Kremtut, which is about 55, but he does hit Bird, which is about 42. So that is another frame in the bag here. If he's on PB pace, I wonder if he's still going to go for Misty Mind's SJR in order to save that extra 3 seconds over Misty Mind's SFR. If he knows Fathlo forfeited or not, I'm not sure. I would have to wager yes. I'm going to say he probably knows what's up with Fathlo. I'm probably say that he has the SRL chat window open. If not, he probably has the restream or Fathlo's stream open. Having a kind of tough time in Mincers there, lost about 5 seconds or so to missed cycles there with those Mincers and those naughties and whatnot, but still not a whole lot of time lost, all things considered, with everything else to be seen throughout the rest of this game. So obviously we're going to hope for Misty Mind's either SJR or SFR. I hope he knows where Fathlo is, and I hope he goes for the SJR. He's just barely behind PB now. You see his timer just barely turned red at the end of that stage. He does use IL splits, so he splits on every level, meaning that his timer will turn red when he's behind. So he is going for the SFR here. He is still staying safe. So getting the SFR for baddies, no problem. So he is out of Misty, or I'm assuming going to be. Assuming he releases at the right point in time and comes down at the right spots, he is then just going to have to deal with Loopy and hope for Platform Peril's jump roll. And then, of course, some good RNG on the Neki 2 fight. And beyond that, all he has to do is go for those Crownless K. Rool hits. Here, he's probably going to opt out of picking up Donkey, which makes it a little bit more spooky just because if he gets hit anywhere, which isn't out of the question, if he gets hit anywhere, that's it. He's dead. He doesn't have Donkey to back him up. Nice multinational roll right there. Good movement through the triple pillars right there, and get a little bit of lag there just due to the midway barrel breaking open and all the sprites going on and whatnot. But he is gracefully flying through Misty right now. I shouldn't say flying because there is an SJR here, and that's how he would fly through. But he is rolling deep through Loopy Lights, and having a pretty good run, getting Mankey rolled no problem. Still on very, very good pace. Entering Platform Perils 28:41. So this is a potential 32. We'll see how he ends up playing this out. We'll see if he gets lucky on this one last frame perfect trick. Opts out of the army back boosts there. And he hits the jump roll. All right, so he is free and clear out of this. I don't know if his PB has perils. I'm sure it does. But he is very, very near behind his PB right now. So he is about 232 for all of you in a race. I don't know what race record is. I believe it is a 32. I believe it's by Fathlo. I don't know the exact time though. I'm gonna say that Stu's gonna be really close to it if he doesn't get it. 32:27, Fathlo says. Okay. Or he's guesstimating Stu's time, not sure which. But he sacrificed his Diddy, And now he just needs to get those optimal necky hits, losing about a half a second there maybe on that last necky hit. He's looking at a 32.29. Yeah, so he is on his way to a very nice mid 32 in a race with, let's see, Forest Frenzy SJR. He missed Ropage Rumble SJR, had to play at the stage. He got ODA Sacrifice List, and then he got hit in Elevator, had to play that out. He hit Bird Tut, he got Misty SFR, and then he got Peril's Jump Roll. So all in all, very, very solid showing. Really the only stage where he missed out on a good jump roll is Ropage Rumble, and I guess Elevator Entrance as well. That one's not really meta yet. A lot of runners don't typically go for it. It is a very, like, it's nothing to be scoffed at. That's a good amount of savings. It's just you have to go for a sacrificeless ODA, which a lot of runners aren't comfortable with yet, which is really what's keeping Elevator Antics SJR out of the meta. So Stu is going through the cannonball phase here, last hit on the cannonball phase, and he's going to have his mid 32 here, no problem. Bandon on coast, one more reminder, and I don't know how to look up the race record for DKC. Oh, here it is, I think. No. Doesn't show on the race page, on the games page. I don't know it, but I believe it's held by Fathlo. I don't know how to find it, but we might see here in a second. Spoilers, it wasn't a race record, but he did improve his personal race record by a good 50 seconds, down to 32:30 official SRL time. So Stu the Madman getting that mid 32 in a race. Unfortunately, Fathlo just had a really rough go of it. He was he put up a good show, but the game just had other things in mind for him. So there's only so much you can do sometimes.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello and welcome.
What's up, boys? Yeah, that was quite a roller coaster from beginning to end, from the first race to the last, and I'll say that is exactly what I expected. The race between the two titans of this game in this tournament right now, like literally, as I said in the beginning, the Clash of the Titans, and it certainly was. Like, you guys put on a show.
I'm so happy it went to 3 games. That was like, I said it before I started the race up in my stream. I was like, man, I really hope it goes to 3 because I want to make sure the audience gets a nice view in here, because this is definitely always a blast to race Fathlo. He's so fucking good. Oh, sorry, so freaking good.
Well, I am still fucking good.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I was like wishing like bad stuff on you or whatever, but like I wanted you to lose. Dude, I really did, just so we could get a third one.
Yeah.
And so Fathlo, it seemed like the two of you pretty much swapped times from the first game to the second. Stu's ending time from that first game was basically Fathlo's end time in the second game, and vice versa. So, I mean, you two are very, very evenly matched in those first 2 games, but it seemed like the game just had other plans in mind for you. In game 3, Fathlo.
It was really hard for me to come back from what happened in 1-1 or not in 1-1.
Okay,
in
so
World
take
1.
me through what happened. Sorry.
Yeah, 1-3, the very last section where you typically expect people to screw up. I don't even know what I typically expect, but like The section with the on guard token and the two critters between two crawl spaces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I rolled a little late, and then I missed the first guy, and then I turned, and then just died on the second guy.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Okay, so I saw you turn back. Was it just because you thought that your roll like wasn't gonna connect?
No, I knew that it didn't connect, and then what I should have done was just press Y, but instead, for some reason, I was like press left and then Y, and the left killed me.
and
so I couldn't roll.
Yeah, at that point it was all ogre, right? Like you just get in that mindset where
it wasn't. I mean, my mindset was I didn't think it was over at that point. I was like, okay, well, I can at least try to come back from this. Yeah. It was over though in World 2 when Donkey disappeared on the Millstone super jump setup.
Right. Yeah. So that one
I wasn't touching the wall, even though I was touching the wall, man.
no. So your setup was good. That one, as far as I'm aware, just happens based upon like where you are as Diddy, like after you end up taking damage, and sometimes the camera just scrolls too far to the right, and that despawns Donkey.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that's from what I've seen, from what I've gathered around the community. It's just basically where you end up taking damage and then where you go afterwards. If you don't let Donkey go up off the top of the screen before you start going back to the right.
Okay. I just assumed I released right a little bit too quickly, so.
Oh well.
That was my assumption. But
yeah,
I don't. I was touching the wall for sure.
I don't know exactly what happened, but that's what I've seen so far. But yeah, I just like in the second race, you were behind for a while, Fathlo, but you did end up coming back. I believe it was Slipslide Ride. Under the B, did you in there, Stu?
I haven't died to Under the B in like 1,000 years. I was so sad. I didn't. I noticed though.
I don't even do it. So
I went back after the death and went straight into Under the B and absolutely crushed it. So
didn't even flinch.
Yeah,
I mentioned that too.
Yeah, I was ready. I was ready to take that one on. Get rid of that demon.
Yeah, that happened to me actually in the second race, but with MCM because I died to MCM jump roll, and I was like, no, I'm not. I'm still going for
it. and he in fact hit it the second time.
Very nice.
And I believe Fathlo, you were 3 for 3 on ODA.
Yes.
And Stu was 3 for 3 on Frenzy.
Yeah.
I think
there was a ton of frames hit tonight.
Yeah, there were.
I was watching the restream off to the side, but yeah, it was just constant frames everywhere between us.
Yeah, definitely. I think you both hit RBR in.
Yeah, we were like 1 second apart. I remember looking right after I killed the beaver, and I'm like, holy fuck, we're like 1 second apart.
Yeah,
the only RBR I didn't get was this race. This of all races, the one that didn't get RBR was this one, which would have been huge.
Yeah, I missed it too.
That would have been a huge PB.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that would have been it too, because that was like 20 seconds, right?
Yep.
It costs you if you miss it, because the setup is so costly.
If you miss it and the army follows, right? It's like 18, 19, 20 seconds in that range, depending on how the rest of the how you get back into the groove. So
right.
Pretty expensive.
So Stu, your thoughts on Kremtut?
I was,
You never went for it once. I noticed that every time because I was always checking. Never even went for it once.
Because I died in a race the last time, so I went for it last set of races, and I died once, and I was just like, I don't like it. It's for PB attempts. I'll probably still go for it, but I don't feel confident in races.
Yeah,
too much on it.
You hit it in the last one, but I believe that's the only run that you hit it in.
Bird Tut?
Yes.
Yes, I was 1 for 3 on Bird. I was like, come on, man! The first run I had was I thought pretty solid up until I missed Bird. I'm like, man, that just gives it right back. Like I didn't know where Fathlo was exactly, but it's like, man, 40. You can't give Fathlo 40 seconds because he'll take it away and run with it. So
yeah, that's kind of the very first one. In the very first one, somebody mentioned that I was 42 seconds behind, so I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's
if I get Bird Tut, then I'm 1 second ahead.
yeah. It was pretty much exactly that. You were like right on the cusp where if you hit Bird, you would have been like there, and if you hit Krem, you would have been like just barely ahead.
Yeah.
So That was good. I am a little bit saddened that Loopy Lights SJR was not hit. I'm still waiting for that.
I tried.
But yeah, you attempted it, which is very commendable, and I'm happy with that. I'm satiated.
Offline practice, I've spent maybe about 20 minutes on it, and I can't even get it. Like so it's
yeah. You know that's a thing too. Like back when we first knew about it, it was everybody tried, and we're like, well, this is just dumb. But
it's not easy.
We kind of figured it out though. I wouldn't say it's not easy. I mean, it's close to any other. Well, it's close to RBR for the frame, to be honest. It's just the initial setup and the movement you need to do to get.
The setup is 10 times harder, but getting the frame itself is a lot easier. The thing that I have a problem with is I very often get a single explosion, and then you can't save that one, unfortunately.
No, there's no way.
Yeah. So
somebody finds a way.
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think even if you find a way to save it, you're gonna be losing more time than it saves anyway.
Yeah, because it only saves 3 optimally. So.
How about that SFR, man?
Yeah, you were on it, Stu. You hit that SFR, no problem.
Yeah, man, I hope so, because I spent like so many hours the last 2 days developing strats and optimizations. And
I was really hoping I was gonna see Temple Tempest SFR, but no.
I mean, so it is pretty darn fast, and anytime you miss the big extendo, it probably is actually faster if you had just done the SFR.
Which you did a couple times.
I got the big one once. I know. So yeah, and so 2 out of 3 times it would have been faster to do the SFR. So it's something to think about. Maybe in a race situation, it's worth it. Yeah. But the problem is that while most of the time the SFR is free, there is once in a blue moon where the naughty you bounce off of him instead of taking damage, which I did in practice. And as soon as you mess up that, then you've lost a ton of time. Like, even if you had messed up the extendo, you would have been faster than trying out a failed SFR. So, you know.
Yeah. I only had like an hour to practice that before we started the race, so my muscle memory kind of messed with me going into.
I found out about it like mid-afternoon yesterday after we've been like talking.
And I had initially the race was scheduled yesterday.
Yeah.
But I had to postpone because I wasn't feeling well. Talk to Stu about it.
Yeah.
So I didn't even look at it other than the videos that we saw yesterday. I just didn't do anything. So I had about an hour before the race today to try to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured it out, but I'm not comfortable with it after just.
It's definitely counterintuitive in some places. I'll say that for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
So all in all, very good showings on a lot of things. Also a little bit sad I didn't see Fabi roll.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Stand in a race situation. It's really tough. But
yeah.
What else were we missing? Frim, obviously, and no elevator antics SFR, but that's kind of to be expected. That one's kind of impossible.
The snake, man. I was so the last race, which I lost an additional 2 seconds, because like normally if you go for the snake, it's -13 or +7. +7 if you fail. And I go for a relatively new extendo at the beginning, and normally I do a pretty good job. And if I don't get it, the vast majority of times I just kind of slow down after the mini necky and then continue on my merry way, like very minimal time loss. But this time I like took damage on the snake, the very first or something like that. Like,
yeah, you like ran straight into it.
Yeah, it was so unfortunate because I didn't even get to try it the last time. Like, oof.
Right.
Yeah.
So the elevator antics SFR has already antiquated the Stumo roll. It lasted about a week.
Stumo roll?
Oh yeah. If you go, well, no, it's the Stuma pack, because if the one I went for is the Stuma pack, where we combined all 3 of our methodologies.
Do you wait? Do you skip the mini necky though?
No, I roll through the mini necky.
Okay. Because
yeah.
I saw people were rolling through 3 snakes, but killing the mini necky on the way over. So why don't you take that mini necky for a 4th baddie?
No, someone did it for the SFR. Someone definitely was using the mini necky.
Okay, so I saw two different methods of doing the SFR. One where they hit 2 snakes and the mini neki, and one where they hit 3 snakes.
Oh,
but I didn't see anybody do 3 snakes and the mini neki.
Oh, I only saw the 2 snakes and the mini neki, so I might have missed the one with the 3.
Okay, one was by Ryu, and I don't know who the other one was by, but it's on Twitter. I'll share it with you later.
Okay.
Because I know you're an old man, you don't use Twitter, but but yeah, either way, lots of good stuff showcased tonight, and I don't know if I can expect, but I hope for a rematch down in the finals, and I really like to see rounds 4, 5, and 6 from you guys.
Oh, for sure.
And we can only hope that'd be in the grand finals. That'd definitely be the way to top this off. And I have had so much fun commentating these races between you two guys. The Clash of the Titans, as it were. I can't wait for the rematch. Need to come up with a good name at chat. That is up to you to come up with. But any closing thoughts from you guys? Stu, what are your plans moving forward in this tournament?
I'm just gonna continue to investigate Misty Mines, practice, keep that strong. I don't want to get overconfident just because I hit it 3 times here. But I'm feeling pretty good. With that frame gone, it makes this game a lot more consistent. I feel like World 6 is the hardest set of frames, so removing that's really nice. And I don't know, I'm loving how much the Donkey community has been putting into DKC 1 lately. A lot of great new tech. So shout outs to everyone who's been helping in that regard, and not just the SFR, by the way. There's like the Stuma pack that we were talking about earlier, Zero Roll. Joe Roll's a little bit older, but there's just tons of stuff, mini stuff here and there, and so that's what makes this game so fun, man. Keeps it fresh.
Joe Roll's like 4 years old.
I know, but I still love Joe, man. Joe Roll might be 4 years old, but Joe's only like 1 year old, man. He's still a young baby love.
All right, Fathlo, what are your plans? Second chance bracket.
Sorry, you kind of cut out there.
How are you going to get out of the second chance bracket?
I'm just going to play a game.
The man knows. The man already knows he has no other competition.
I mean, something I definitely need to practice is the Misty crap. Well,
yeah, definitely.
The super free roll, whatever we're calling it right now, but definitely need to practice that because I've messed it up on every race.
Do you have any plans to learn ODA SJR?
Sacrifices? Hell
sacrifices.
No, I don't need that.
Yeah, I was kind of figuring, just hoping that one day we get that 3130. But I guess we're gonna have to wait for Stu to learn.
I'm right here. I can do it. Hello.
Waiting on Creme Tut. Hello, Stu. All right.
You're right.
That's definitely a trade-off for you, Stu.
Yeah. I do it in PB attempts, so.
With your powers combined, we'll get that 30 days.
Man, we should just work together to theory test it and call it a day.
We just need those earrings from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh yes, of course. Fusion.
Patara, that's what it's called, right?
Fusion earrings, or you don't have to do the dance or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not doing a dance. So we're Patara-ing this.
So we can expect Fathlo x Stu One Mind DKC at GDQ.
That's gonna be another fun rematch. I assume that this tournament will hopefully finish before then, but if not, I mean, we'll also see each other at the GDQ race. So that'll be fun.
I have to hope so. In the next 2 months, we should probably get through all these.
We'll get it done.
Rematch with one more entrant, V0oid, I believe it's pronounced. You should at him all the time and call him streamer, by the way. And that should be a good one, definitely. All right, guys, that is all I have. I'm rolling out. Any closing thoughts?
Fun game. Thanks, Fathlo, for the race. I'm sorry about the third one, but the other two obviously were extremely fun. And again, as always, shout outs to Speed Gaming for helping put this on, and Neo and Jasper for their organization, Lumo for commentary, and everyone else who's also stepped up for commentary. Makes a big difference when you're racing with commentary for the audience.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, guys. Rolling out.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.